The wind howled through the cracks of the ancient alien temple. Dust floated in the air, thick and dry. Jackson stepped inside carefully, his flashlight shaking slightly in his hand. The place felt forgotten, lost in time. His friends called it the Temple of Echoes, but to him it felt more like a tomb. Jackson was an explorer, but not a serious one. He liked to joke, to laugh, and sometimes to break rules. So when he saw the statue at the center of the room, he couldn't help himself. It was beautiful, strange and tall. Shaped like a female alien warrior, her arms were crossed, her head bowed, and her face looked sad. She was made of some stone that shimmered softly under his light. "Look at her," Jackson said with a smirk. She looked so serious. He walked closer, the air around the statue feeling colder. His crewmates warned him from behind. "Jackson, don't touch it." But he just laughed and reached out. With a playful grin, he poked her chest lightly with one finger. Nothing happened. He turned to his friends. "See, she's just encolden." Suddenly, her eyes lit up, bright gold, glowing. Jackson froze. A sound like a deep heartbeat echoed through the room. Then, faster than anyone could react, the statue's stone hand moved. It grabbed Jackson's wrist tightly. The crew shouted in shock. Some stepped back, some raised their weapons. Jackson didn't move, couldn't speak. The statue leaned her face closer, and for the first time in thousands of years, she spoke. "You woke me," she whispered, her voice low and broken. "Run." Jackson's heart pounded in his chest. Her hand was cold but soft now, like skin, not stone. The statue girl, no, this was no statue, looked at him with fear, not anger. Then her knees gave out, and she fell forward. Jackson caught her just in time. Her body felt warm now, almost human. The glowing light in her eyes faded slowly. She breathed, light and shaky but real. The crew stood in silence, not sure what to do. Is she alive?" One of them asked. Jackson nodded slowly. "She's alive." They gently laid her down on a flat stone nearby. Jackson checked her hands. They were no longer stone. Her skin was smooth and pale blue, marked with ancient lines like tattoos. Her clothes looked like armor, cracked and broken but still shining. Suddenly the walls of the temple began to glow. Strange symbols appeared, spinning in circles. A low hum filled the air, like the temple was waking up too. She said to run. Jackson whispered, looking around. "Should we?" someone asked nervously, but Jackson didn't move. He looked down at the alien girl, still breathing, her lips moving slightly. Then she said a word, soft and broken. "Eris." That was her name. Jackson felt it deeply, like it was placed inside his mind by her voice, and then everything went silent again. The lights faded, the walls stopped glowing, but something had changed. They all felt it. The temple wasn't empty anymore. Outside, the wind stopped, the sky above darkened. A strange light blinked far away in the clouds, like something had been signaled. "She's not just a statue," Jackson said, standing slowly. "She was waiting." His hand still tingled where she touched him. It felt warm, but not painful, more like a memory. Someone else's memory. He looked at Eris again, and somehow he knew this was only the beginning. They carried her back to the ship, carefully and quietly. No one joked this time. No one laughed. Even Jackson stayed silent. As they left the temple, something followed them, a soft hum, a pulse in the air. The temple watched them leave, and behind them, the entrance slowly sealed shut, as if it didn't want them to come back. Inside the ship, Eris lay on the medbed, still asleep. Her fingers moved now and then, like she was dreaming. Jackson sat beside her, staring at her face. She looked peaceful, but powerful too. "Who are you?" he whispered. But the only answer was the sound of her breathing, slow, steady, alive. Far above in space, a dark ship moved in the shadows. No lights, no signals, just silence, until a voice inside the ship said, "She has awoken." Jackson didn't sleep that night. He sat beside her, watching the soft rise and fall of her chest. The ship's lights were dimmed, and the crew had gone quiet. Even the engine hum felt softer, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Eris hadn't moved since they brought her aboard, but strange things were already happening. The medbay lights flickered when she was near, screens glitched, sensors blinked, and the ship's AI gave no answers. Jackson leaned forward, studying her face. Her skin, once stone, now looked alive, smooth and glowing, faintly blue. Lines on her neck pulsed slowly, like veins carrying light instead of blood. She didn't seem dangerous, but neither did the statue, before she grabbed his hand. Suddenly, without warning, her eyes opened, gold and glowing, bright as fire. Jackson jumped back, almost falling out of his chair. Eris turned her head toward him slowly and spoke one word, human. Her voice was soft but clear. It sounded like someone learning to speak again after centuries of silence. Jackson tried to stay calm. "Yes, that's me." She blinked slowly as if confused. Then she sat up straight. No pain, no weakness, like her body remembered strength. The medbed beeped wildly, showing data the ship couldn't even read. Eris looked at her hands, turning them slowly. "You touched the seal," she said. "You weren't supposed to." Jackson frowned. "You mean the statue?" Eris shook her head. "That was a prison." He stared at her, confused. "You were locked up in that temple." Eris nodded, then closed her eyes. "I broke the law, tried to stop the war. They punished me, froze me in stone." "Who's they?" Jackson asked, voice low. She opened her eyes, and her voice grew colder. "The council, my people. They feared peace more than death." Before Jackson could ask more, alarms began to beep. The ship's control panel flashed red. Crew members ran in, shouting, "We're being tracked. Something's following us through subspace." Eris stood from the medbed, her legs steady, her face calm. "They've already found me," she said quietly. Jackson stared at her. "Who?" "The council." She didn't answer. Instead, she moved to the screen, placed her hand on the glass, and the ship's system, dead and frozen seconds ago, suddenly flickered to life. It responded to her touch, glowing with golden light. The crew gasped. One soldier raised his weapon, but Jackson stepped in front of her. "Don't," he warned. "She saved us." Eris turned slowly to face them all. "You don't understand," she said. "I'm not the danger. They are." She pointed at the blinking red dot on the screen. A silent ship, gaining speed. No ID, no message. Only one thing confirmed. It was coming for them. Jackson swallowed hard. "What happens if they catch us?" Eris met his eyes, her answer cold and final. "Then you all die." For a long second, no one spoke. The crew looked at Jackson, waiting. He turned back to her. "Then what do we do?" Eris stepped closer to him, her face serious. "You broke the seal. You woke me. Now I'm yours, and you're mine." Jackson blinked, confused. "What does that mean?" She touched the back of his hand gently, and suddenly a surge of energy passed between them. Jackson gasped as his mind filled with strange images, flashes of stars, battles, alien cities, and a name whispered inside his skull like wind. "Eris." She pulled her hand back, breathing heavier now. "You're connected to me," she said. "The bond has started." Jackson's hand still tingled. He looked at her, stunned. "You're saying, we're linked now?" She nodded once. "You'll see what I see, feel what I feel, and if I die, so will you." Outside the ship, in the black of space, something moved. A shadow with wings of metal and no face. Its engines made no sound, but its presence pushed against every scanner, every sensor, every soul, and inside, Jackson realized something terrifying. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't luck. He was chosen. And now, nothing in his life would ever be the same again. The voice came in the middle of the night. Jackson sat up, sweating, heart pounding in his chest. He looked around the dark room, empty and still, but the voice remained inside his head, cold and deep. "Return what is not yours," it whispered again, and then it was gone. He stood up and walked down the silent hallway of the ship. Everything felt off, like the air was thicker. Lights flickered as he passed, and his hand still tingled where Eris had touched him. She had warned him. They were connected now. Jackson reached the control deck and saw her already there. She stood alone, eyes closed, hands resting on the glass screen. Golden light moved through her veins like threads of fire. She didn't turn to look at him, but she spoke. "You heard it too?" Jackson nodded. "What was that?" Her eyes opened slowly. "The voice of the hunter." He frowned. "The ship that's following us." She nodded once. "It's not a ship. Not really." Jackson felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Then what is it?" "A weapon," she said, "built long ago to find me, to destroy me, and now you." The room felt smaller now, tighter, like the ship itself was afraid. Jackson stared at the screen, red dots still following them. "Closer each hour. Can we run?" he asked. Eris shook her head. "It never stops. It doesn't sleep. And it remembers your scent." He blinked. "Scent." She looked at him carefully. "When you touched me, the bond began. It marked you." Jackson's heart sank. "So I'm part of this now, whether I want to be or not." Eris nodded. "Yes." The door behind them opened, and one of the crew stepped in, pale and shaking. "You need to see this," she said, voice thin. They followed her to the sleeping quarters. Inside, one of the beds was empty. No sign of the man who was supposed to be there, only a strange black dust on the floor, soft like ash. The crew looked to Eris, terrified. She stared at the dust for a long time before speaking. "It's begun." No one knew what she meant, but the fear in her voice said enough. Later that night, Jackson sat alone with her in the dark dining area. He stared at his hands, thinking. Eris sat across from him, quiet, watching. After a long silence, he asked, "What are you really?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, "Once I was a general, a leader. I tried to end a war no one wanted to stop. Why? Because I loved someone I wasn't supposed to. Jackson looked up, surprised. Her face didn't change, but her eyes looked far away. They called it betrayal, she said. Said I was weak, dangerous. So they turned me to stone and sent me away. Jackson whispered, for love. Eris nodded, for peace. But love was the reason I tried. He leaned back in his seat, the ship creaking around them. They'll kill us for waking you, he said. Eris smiled sadly. Yes, that's how their justice works. The lights blinked twice, then once more, then went dark. Only the emergency glow remained. Then came a soft rumble, deep and far away. Jackson stood quickly, heart racing. We're not alone, Eris said, standing beside him. She touched the wall and gold light spread under her fingers. A part of the wall shifted, opened, revealing a small hidden room. What is this? He asked. She stepped inside without answering. He followed, eyes wide. Inside were weapons, strange, alien, glowing softly. Armor pieces floated mid-air like waiting for someone to wear them. Symbols moved across the walls, shining softly. This ship was once mine, she said. Long ago it followed me into exile. Jackson stared at her. Why didn't you tell us? Because you would have run, she said simply. She reached for a blade, but it burned her fingers. She winced. It no longer obeys me. Jackson stepped forward, hand reaching out. The sword floated toward him instead. He didn't touch it. He just looked. But the blade spun slowly in the air, glowing brighter near him. Eris stared at him, surprised. It accepts you? Jackson didn't know what to say. He stepped back slowly. A soft voice whispered again inside his mind. You are not ready. The light faded, and the room went silent. Eris looked at him with new eyes, curious, confused, maybe even afraid. Jackson whispered, what is happening to me? She said only one word, change. Outside the ship, something dark and massive passed behind the stars. No sound, no signal, no light, only the feeling of something watching and waiting. Jackson and Eris walked back into the hallway, and somewhere deep in the shadows of the ship, another crew member screamed, and then there was silence again. The ship stopped making sounds. Not even the engine hummed. It was like space had swallowed every bit of noise. Jackson stood in the center of the control room, eyes fixed on the front window. A massive shape had just appeared, silent, dark, without lights. It didn't send warnings or weapons. It just watched, floating above them like a black skyfish. It's here, Eris said quietly. Her voice was flat, like someone remembering a nightmare, not seeing one. Jackson nodded, unable to speak. His hands still tingled, the bond between them stronger than before. The crew waited for orders, but no one knew what to do. Running didn't work. Hiding hadn't helped. The thing kept finding them. Now it floated close enough to block half their star view. Suddenly the lights on the ship blinked out, all at once. The crew screamed. Weapons clicked. Someone tripped over a chair. Jackson's ears filled with static, and then a single word cut through it. Deliver. The voice wasn't human or alien. It was old, cold, and mechanical. Eris dropped to her knees, grabbing her head. It's speaking to the ship, she said. It wants me. No, Jackson said quickly, kneeling beside her. I'm not giving you to anyone. You don't understand, she whispered. If I stay here, it will kill everyone. One of the crew, a tall soldier named Dex, stepped forward. She's the reason it came, he growled. She's the reason our friends are missing. Jackson stood up. We're not handing her over. Dex raised his gun. Then you'll both die with her. But before he could fire, the ship shook violently. A giant metallic claw slammed into the side of the ship from outside. Sparks flew. Metal screamed. Lights exploded. Everyone fell. Jackson hit the ground hard, but held on to Eris. She opened her eyes, glowing gold again. Get me to the core, she said. I can lock it out. Jackson nodded and pulled her to her feet. They ran through the dark hallway, crew members yelling. The walls flickered with warning lights, and smoke poured from the ceiling. They reached the core room, a small chamber with a glowing orb in the center. Eris stepped forward, placing both hands on the orb. It pulsed with golden light, then screamed. Not a real scream, more like metal bending under pressure. The walls cracked, and something outside growled in reply. She's fighting back, Jackson said, amazed. But then Eris staggered, her knees trembling. It's stronger now, she whispered. It fed on your fear. Jackson looked around, desperate. What can I do? You have to trust me, she said completely. He stepped forward, placed his hand on top of hers on the glowing orb. The light spread instantly, wrapping around both of them. Images flooded his mind again. Stars, war, blood, betrayal, a kiss, a fall, chains, silence. He gasped, almost falling backward. But Eris held his hand tighter, grounding him. "You saw what I saw," she whispered. "Now you know who I was." Jackson stared at her. "You were their hero, until you weren't." The bond burned now, deep inside his bones. Something inside him changed again, faster, sharper, more alive. He could hear the machine outside the ship, feel its hunger, but he didn't fear it anymore. He turned to the crew, who watched from the doorway, scared and silent. "We're not running anymore," Jackson said, his voice firm. "She's not our prisoner. She's our last chance." Eris stood up, the light fading from her arms. She looked weak, her face pale, but her eyes still glowed. "I need time," she said, "to finish the lock." Jackson nodded and turned toward the door. Then the entire ship shook again, this time harder. From the floor vents, black liquid oozed out, moving like it was alive. The hunter had sent something aboard. The crew opened fire, bullets tearing into the liquid, but it kept moving, crawling, splitting, hunting. Jackson grabbed a metal pipe and slammed it into the nearest shadow. A hiss came from it, but no blood, just smoke. Eris fell to her knees again, shaking. "I can't hold it," she cried. "I need more time." Jackson stood over her, swinging at the shadows. Whatever happened now, he wasn't letting her fall. Not here, not like this. The lights blinked once, then the black mass paused, and everything froze, like time had stopped. A new voice spoke, not cold this time, but familiar, soft. It came from Eris's mouth, but it wasn't her voice. "You have chosen well, human. Now survive until the rest wake." Then the light returned, and the black liquid hissed louder, but now it was pulling back, retreating. Jackson stood there, breathing hard. Eris opened her eyes slowly and whispered, "You weren't supposed to be the key, but you are." The moment their hands touched the control orb again, fire raced through Jackson's veins. Not real fire, but something worse. Memories that weren't his, pain that wasn't his, love that didn't belong to him. All of it crashed into his mind like a wave. He dropped to the floor, gasping, eyes wide, his fingers clawed at the ground, and he screamed not from fear, but from something deeper, something changing inside him. Eris stood over him, glowing brighter than before, but her face showed fear, not strength. "This shouldn't be happening," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to bond this fast." Jackson's eyes flashed gold for a second, then returned to normal. He sat up slowly, shaking. What did you do to me?" "I didn't," Eris said, stepping back. "You did this yourself." He looked at his hands. Light shimmered just under the skin. It pulsed like a second heartbeat, something ancient waking up. "I can hear your thoughts," he said quietly. "Even when you're not speaking." Eris nodded once. "The bond is complete." Jackson shook his head. "But I didn't choose this." "You did the moment you touched me," she said. "That was the test." Outside, the black hunter ship circled closer, now silent again. Its weapons remained cold, its engines barely burning, but the threat had not vanished. It was watching, studying, waiting for a weakness. On board Jackson's ship, strange things were happening. The walls no longer responded to the human crew's commands. Doors opened before Eris, without her touching them. Even the lights dimmed and brightened with her mood. Some crew whispered that the ship was no longer theirs. Some feared Jackson, who now spoke sometimes in a voice that wasn't his own. But he didn't care about fear. Not now, not when something far more dangerous had awakened inside him. Later, Eris sat with him in the old memory room, a place full of floating images, moving like smoke, memories locked in light. She showed him what the council had done, the lies they spread, the war they wanted. Jackson saw her past, saw her screaming as they turned her to stone, saw her love burned alive for speaking against the council, saw the statue locked deep underground with no key. "You tried to stop it," Jackson said softly. "You tried to save them. And they called it treason," she whispered. Jackson stood, fists clenched. "Then we stopped them for real this time." Before Eris could answer, alarms rang again, but not from the black ship. This was something else. A transmission had come through. No sound, only symbols. Eris stared at them, her face going pale. "This is from a temple," she said, "one of the last still active." Jackson frowned. "You mean like the one where we found you?" She nodded. "Yes, but this one is different. It holds the beacon." He didn't know what that meant, but from the look on her face it was serious. "What does it do?" he asked. "It calls the rest," Eris said. "The others, like me, the ones still trapped." Jackson's eyes widened. "There are more of you." "Yes," she said. "Hundreds, maybe more." Jackson didn't hesitate. "Then we're going there." Eris looked at him closely. "You don't understand what you're saying," she said. "If we light the beacon, the war returns. Then we finish it this time," Jackson said firmly. "For good." The ship changed course, heading toward the beacon temple. The crew didn't ask questions. Some feared them, others followed quietly, but they all felt it. Something was building. Power, danger, destiny. Eris stood alone later that night, staring out at the stars. Jackson walked up beside her, hands in his pockets. "Do you ever wish you hadn't woken up?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Sometimes, but then I remember someone still touched the seal." He looked at her, eyes soft. "Yeah, I did." She turned to him. "And you didn't run?" "Not yet," he said with a small smile. Suddenly, the stars above twisted. Light bent around something huge. Another ship appeared, not like the hunters. This one was golden, silent, shaped like a blade. Eris stepped back, eyes wide. "That's not possible," she whispered. "That ship belongs to me." Jackson stared at the screen, confused. "But you said your ship was lost." "It was," she said, "and it should be sleeping, unless—" Her voice trailed off. Jackson looked at her. "Unless what?" She turned slowly to him. "Unless someone else like me has already woken up." The golden ship didn't send a signal. It simply hovered there, like a ghost from another time. No noise, no movement, just presence, heavy and watching. The crew stood frozen, eyes wide, weapons useless in their hands. Eris took a step forward, her voice barely a whisper. "That ship shouldn't be awake." Jackson glanced at her. "But it is." She nodded slowly, her face filled with something between fear and wonder. "I named it Vehilion a long time ago." The name meant nothing to the crew. But the ship seemed to react. Its lights blinked once, soft and gold, like it had heard her speak. Then a sound filled the air, not from outside, but from inside their ship. A voice, calm and female, not human and not Eris. Connection accepted. Eris recognized, awaiting final bond. The crew looked to Jackson, unsure what that meant. Eris didn't answer. She simply reached for his hand, her touch warm and firm. "You have to see it for yourself," she said. Before he could ask how, a beam of light shot from their ship's ceiling. It wrapped around both of them and pulled them into a world of pure color. They stood on nothing, and yet everything around them moved. Stars pulsed, time twisted. Then the scene shifted. They were standing inside an ancient hall, bright and gold. The walls were covered in glowing carvings, faces of warriors, kings and queens, all with eyes like Eris, all wearing the same ancient marks. Jackson stepped forward, breathing slowly. "This was your world," he said. "No," she replied softly. "This was our beginning." A large round door appeared in front of them. Symbols pulsed on it, forming words Jackson couldn't read. But somehow he understood them. "One must die so the others may wake." Jackson turned to Eris, his voice sharp. "What does that mean?" She looked away, her face tense. "When the beacon is lit, one of us must give everything." "You mean your life?" "Yes," she said. "The beacon takes a soul to break the seal." Jackson shook his head. "No, we'll find another way." "There is no other way," she said, her voice flat. "That's why they locked us away. We were dangerous because we chose love over orders." Before Jackson could reply, the scene shattered. They were back on their ship, both gasping for breath. The light faded, and the golden ship outside now moved slowly toward the temple ahead. Eris stared out the window. "The beacon is inside," she said, "and I can feel them. The others, still dreaming." Jackson looked at her, his heart heavy, mind full of impossible thoughts. "You're not going to die," he said firmly. "I won't let you." She turned to him with a small, sad smile. "You may not have a choice." The ship reached the old temple, a mountain of black stone sitting on a dead moon. The crew stayed behind, afraid. Only Jackson and Eris stepped out into the windless silence. Inside, the temple walls pulsed with light. A sound like slow breathing echoed from deep within. Jackson's chest felt tight, his legs heavy. He wasn't sure if it was the air or the fear. Eris led him through the dark halls until they reached a chamber where a strange pod floated in the air. Inside it was her, another Eris. Same face, same armor, eyes closed, breathing softly. Jackson stepped back in shock. "Is that you?" Eris nodded. "It's the part of me that stayed behind," she said. "To open the beacon, we must become whole again." Suddenly, a deep growl shook the walls. The hunter ship had arrived. It had followed them, even here. Eris looked at Jackson, her eyes filled with gold. "I need time," she said. "Buy it for me." Jackson turned, sprinting back through the temple as it began to shake. Dark shapes dropped from above, metal monsters sent by the hunter. But Jackson didn't stop. He ran, shouting, swinging a metal rod, blasting one apart with a stolen alien pistol. still. Back in the chamber, Eris stood in front of the floating pod. She reached out and placed her hand on the glass. Her body started to glow, brighter, brighter still. Then her other hand lifted, and the glass melted into light. The two Erises stared at each other, one awake, one waiting. Then they stepped forward and touched foreheads. Jackson felt the explosion before he saw it. A golden wave shot through the temple. The hunter ship outside screamed and vanished into black dust. Inside, everything went still. He ran back to the chamber, heart pounding, lungs burning, and there she stood, Eris, fully whole now, stronger than before, her eyes burning with power, her voice clear and calm. "They are waking," she said, "all of them, and they remember." The stars were whispering, at least that's how it felt. As Jackson stood at the edge of the broken temple, he looked up at the sky, and the stars above flickered like they were passing a secret. A soft hum pulsed through the ground under his boots, deep and ancient. Behind him, Eris stepped out of the golden light, no longer half asleep, no longer afraid. She was reborn, taller somehow, brighter, her steps soundless but strong. Jackson turned to her slowly. "You feel different," he said quietly. "I am," she answered. "I remember everything now." He waited, but she didn't say more. Her golden eyes scanned the sky, like searching for something far away. Jackson's chest felt heavy, like words were sitting there waiting to escape. "So what now?" he finally asked. "Are we at war?" Ari stepped beside him. She reached out and took his hand gently. "No," she said. "We're waking up, and they're watching." All across the galaxy, the hidden temples began to pulse. One by one, ancient chambers cracked open, statues blinked their stone eyes, beacons lit in silent places, on forgotten moons, inside hollow planets, beneath oceans no one swam in. They were waking, the lost ones, the locked ones, the ones like her. A message burned across the stars, unseen but deeply felt. The seal is broken. Back aboard the ship, the crew stared at screens lighting up with unknown signals. Dozens, hundreds, all waking at once. None of them human, but all of them old, powerful, connected. Jackson watched the chaos from the bridge, but his mind was somewhere else. He could still feel Eris inside him, not as a voice, not as thoughts, but like a second pulse under his skin. She joined him there quietly. He didn't have to ask what she was thinking. He already knew, so he just said it out loud. "They're scared of you." Eris nodded. "They should be." He smiled a little, not because it was funny, but because she said it with no pride, only truth. "You're not going to destroy them, are you?" he asked. "No," she said, "but I won't let them destroy anyone else either." Outside, the golden ship Valian hovered silently. It was waiting for her. Its true captain returned. It could take her anywhere now, even to the heart of the council. Jackson watched her look at the ship. He already knew what she was thinking. "You're leaving," he said, not asking, just knowing. "I have to," she whispered. "There are others who need me, others who were left behind." Jackson nodded. The silence between them was soft, not cold, but it hurt just the same. "I'll go with you," he said, surprising even himself. Eris turned sharply, eyes wide. "You'll leave your world, your people." He took a step forward. "You were frozen for doing the right thing," he said. "You were alone for lifetimes. I won't let you be alone again." For the first time since she woke, her face broke into something warm. She reached out and touched his cheek. "Then I'm not afraid anymore." They boarded the golden ship together. As the engines lit, the sky bent around them. The stars grew closer. The galaxy stretched open. The crew watched from their windows. Some waved, some just stared. None of them would forget what happened here, because it was more than a rescue, more than an awakening. It was a return. And at the edge of space, as the ship vanished into light, Eris whispered one final thing. Only Jackson could hear it. "Once I was a statue, now I'm free." And Jackson replied with a small smile. "Yeah, and I was just a human, until I met you."